أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع يجري يا إلهي خذ بقلبي.
We begin with the explanation. The author states باب اللقطة وهي على ثلاثة أضرب, and they are of three categories. اللقطة وهي على ثلاثة أضرب, they are of three categories, and subhanallah, our translator translated it as four categories. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So correct that, they are of three types. Number one, ما تقل قيمته فتجوز أخذه والانتفاع به من غير تعريف, لقول جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه رخص لنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في العصا والصوت وأشباهه يلتقطه الرجل ينتفع به. That which has very little value, we mentioned in Saudi Arabia, that which is under the value of 50 riyals. That which has very little value, it is permissible to take it and make use of it without notification, without ta'rif, without making an advertisement for it, without making a notification and advertising, I found such and such. Because of the saying of Jabir radiallahu ta'ala an, in the case of the staff, the whip, and such like, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam granted us a concession, allowing the man who finds it by chance to make use of it, to take it. This hadith reported by Imam Abu Dawood, but it has weakness in it. But the meaning is correct. You're walking on the street, you found 20 pounds, you found 10 pounds, you can take it. You found a pen somewhere, you can take it insha'Allah. But remember, if you found something and you know the owner, then you have to give it back to the owner. Then you cannot take it, because this would be zulm, this would be oppression. If you found 20 pounds and you saw the brother was walking, it fell from his pocket, you cannot say, well, this is luqata, I'm taking it. Absolutely not. You have to give it back to the owner, if you can. The second category, والثاني الحيوان الذي يمتنع بنفسه من صغار السباع كالإبل والخيل ونحوها فلا يجوز أخذها. The kind of animal that can protect itself from the smaller beasts of prey, like the wolf, etc. Like the camel, so it can protect itself from the wolf. Like the camel, the horse, for instance, we would include the cow, we'd include the mule, the horse, the camel, etc. It is not permissible to take control, take possession of such an animal. It's haram to take possession of such an animal, because the Prophet ﷺ was asked about the stray camel, and he said, what business is it of yours? Leave it alone. It has its hoof, by which it can defend itself, it can walk, it can move. It has its stomach, which to store water, and it has food, which it eats from the trees. So just leave it until the owner comes and the owner finds it. But if someone did take control of this type of animal, this camel, then he does not become the owner of it. He is obliged to guarantee its welfare, and he is not relieved of responsibility for it except by handing it over to the agent of the Imam. Meaning that this stray camel, number one, you were not allowed to take possession of it. Number two, if you did take possession of it, then your hand is yad ghasib. It is as if you had stolen it. And so while the camel is in your possession, if it dies, you are responsible. Even though you did not kill it, even though you did not harm it, you are responsible. Why? Because you had no right to take it in the first place. Example, we mentioned this mas'ala of dhaman. If we have a child who is at the creche, at the kindergarten, so the family, the father, the mother, they trust the people at the kindergarten and they leave the child there. The child is an amana with those people. If, for example, they make ta'addi and they beat the child or something and the child dies, then they are responsible. If, for example, they do not look after the child properly and the child died, they are responsible. But otherwise they are not. The child was there and the child died, natural death, they are not responsible for this matter. But if someone kidnapped a child, and while this individual had the child kidnapped, the child passed away due to a natural death, this individual is responsible. Why? because your hand over that child was the hand of a kidnapper, was the hand of a ghasib. Whereas the teacher at the creche, that teacher's hand over the child is the hand of a trustworthy individual who's trusted, and that's why he has the child. That is yadul aman, and this is yadul ghasib. So this individual who had taken possession of this camel, he is responsible if anything happens with the camel, whether he did it or not. And he is not free from responsibility until he gives off this camel to the agent of the Amir, to the Qadi, etc. Give it back to the government so they can sort it out and they can find the owner. The only one exception given is, if you find this camel or you find this horse, and you know that, or you find this cow somewhere, and you know that there's many lions around and they're going to attack this cow. So here, in trying to look after the cow, you take possession so that you can pass it on to its owner. Here technically it would be allowed, because as the hadith mentioned, this animal can go on its own, it would make its way. But if you know it will not be able to make its way, it's going to be harmed, then in that case, to look after the property of your brother would be permissible for you to take possession of it. The author goes on to the third category and he states, وَالثالث ما تكثر قيمته من الأثمان والمتاع والحيوان الذي لا يمتنع من صغار السباع فيجوز أخذه. The matters which are expensive, things of considerable value, including precious coins, commodities, and the kind of animal that cannot protect itself from the small beasts of prey. It is permissible to take control, take possession of any of such treasure troves, any of such items. It must be advertised in the places where people gather, like the markets and the doors of the masajid. So number one, if it is of considerable value, it would be permissible for you to pick it up. Number two, you need to advertise with regards to this item. In contemporary times, you put an advert in the newspaper. You advertise to the people in the area that it was found. You maybe, if possible, if it was near the masjid, put up an advert in the masjid, at the wall of the masjid, at the notice board, that you have found this item. And you need to do this for 1 year. After 1 year, you can take possession of this item. If the owner had come during the 1 year, you give it back to him. If he came after the 1 year, you give it back to him also. And also remember, if something was lost in the masjid, then we cannot make announcements in the masjid that who has lost a watch, who has lost a mobile phone, etc. The hadith in Sahih Muslim, Prophet ﷺ states, whoever you find announcing in the masjid who lost such and such, say that may Allah not return it to you. Verily the masjid was not built for this. Then when its seeker comes and describes it, the finder must hand it over to him without any proof. The man comes and he says, unless obviously you have doubt in him. But if someone comes, he says, yes, I lost 500 pounds and it was in a black wallet and the black wallet was such and such, khalas, you give it to him. Then it states, if it has not been claimed, translator made a mistake. If it has not been claimed, the author states in the Arabic, وَإِن لَمْ يُعَرِّفْ فَهُوَ كَسَائِرْ مَالِهِ. And if, for example, it was not claimed after a year, then it is like the rest of his property. It's like the rest of my property. I found 500 pounds somewhere, I made an announcement for 1 year, no one came up, then after 1 year, it becomes my property. And the hadith states, وَإِلَّا فَشَأْنُكَ بِهَا. If no one comes after a year, then it is yours. But he cannot dispose of it freely until he advertises its trappings, its quality, its bag, etc. You had to make ta'arif, announce for it for 1 year. Then if no one comes, then you can take possession. ولا يتصرف فيه حتى يعرف وعاءه ووكاءه وصفته. فمتى جاء طالبه فوصفه دفع إليه أو مثله. Then when its seeker comes, if he came after a year and he describes it, it must be handed over to him, or its equivalent if it had already perished. If let's say it was an animal, it was a sheep, and you had slaughtered it and you ate of it. So now the man comes after 2 years, he says, I lost a sheep here, you give him the value of that sheep. If it is an animal that needs provision or something that is in danger of perishing, he may eat it before making the advertisement. I found a sheep somewhere And how am I going to make an announcement for the sheep for 1 year? It's going to cost me so much to look after the sheep for the year. So in this case, I can slaughter it. I found 20 kilograms, 500 kilograms of oranges. How am I going to keep this for 1 year? I need place, I need storage. It might go off. So in this case, I can sell it, I can use it, I can eat it. And when the owner comes, then I need to pay him the value of it. If it is an animal that needs provision or something that is in danger of perishing, he may eat it before making the advertisement, before announcing for 1 year. Or he could sell it and then advertise for it, because Zayd ibn Khalid reports as having said, Allah's Messenger ﷺ was asked about the treasure trove of gold and silver, and he said, you must advertise its wrapper, its container, and continue to advertise it for a year. If the seeker comes someday, then you hand it to him. Hadith in Bukhari. And when he was asked about a sheep, he said, take it, for it belongs to you or your brother or the wolf. But if your brother does come after a year, then you need to hand it over to him if you still have the sheep. And if you don't have it, you ate it, then you need to give him the value. If the treasure trove, if the item which was lost perishes during the year of advertisement without any misconduct, without any ta'addi or ifrat on the finder's part, then there is no liability upon you. Number 3 is different from the second category. Second category, the camel, I had no right to pick it up. And so if I did pick it up and it died, I am responsible. Whereas here, if it was a sheep and I picked it up and the sheep just died a natural death, I am not responsible. Why? Because I had the haq, I had the right to take possession of it as per the third category. Then the author goes on to mention the issues pertaining to the laqit, and he states, وَاللَّقِيتُ هُوَ الطِّفْلِ الْمَنْبُوذ. As for the laqit, this is the child which was abandoned. وَهُوَ مَحْكُومٌ بِحُرِّيَّتِهِ وَإِسْلَامِهِ. The law requires that he be treated as a free individual and that he is a Muslim. وَمَا وُجِدَ عِنْدَهُ مِنْ مَالٍ فَهُوَ لَهُ. And if wealth was found with him, maybe someone abandoned him there, and maybe the father abandoned him or the mother abandoned him, and they left with him around his neck maybe £1,000, then this £1,000 belongs to that child. If any property is found with him, it belongs to him. وَوِلَايَتُهُ لِمُلْتَقِطِهِ إِذَا كَانَ مُسْلِمًا عَدْلًا. The guardianship over this child belongs to the finder, provided that he is a Muslim with an honorable record, who is adl, who is trustworthy. Then the author states, وَنَفَقَتُهُ فِي بَيْتِ الْمَالِ إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَهُ مَا يُنْفِقَ عَلَيْهِ. And the maintenance of this child is from the public treasury, from the Baytul Mal. They will provide, because this is the right and the haq on the dawla, on the country, that they provide for these type of children. If he has nothing of his own to maintain him, but if the wealth which was found on him was more than enough to suffice looking after him, then we use his own wealth. But if there was no wealth, then the Baytul Mal will provide for him. Then the author states, وَمَا خَلَّفَهُ فَهُوَ فَيْء. His inheritance is fay. In reality, translator made an error. Not background, but rather the inheritance. Whatever he leaves behind, his estate is fay. Fay meaning the Baytul Mal. Whatever he leaves behind goes back to the Baytul Mal if he does not have any heirs. But if he got married, if he has kids, then obviously they will inherit from him. But if he had absolutely no relatives, no one to inherit from, his money goes to the Baytul Mal. Ibn Taymiyyah and others of the opinion that if his caretaker, if the guardian, the one who looked after him, is alive, then the guardian will inherit from him. Then the author states, وَمَنِ ادَّعَى نَسَبَهُ أُلْحِقَ بِهِ إِلَّا إِنْ كَانَ كَافِرًا أُلْحِقَ بِهِ نَسَبًا لَا دِينًا وَلَمْ يُسَلَّمْ إِلَيْهِ. If someone claims to be related to this child, someone says, I'm the father of this child, then what happens? We will attach the child to that individual. We will allow it and we will say, yes, the nasab, the lineage is true and you are the father, unless we have reason to doubt. Unless he is an unbeliever, if someone claims to be related to him, he will be attached to him. So this individual, whether he's Muslim or whether he's non-Muslim, he says that I am the father of this child. Then we will say, yes, it's fine, and you are the father of the child. But the author mentions, unless he is a disbeliever. If he's a disbeliever, in which case he will be attached to him in the context of genealogy, in the context of, yes, you being the father, in the context of lineage, you are the father, but not of religion. The child will continue to be a Muslim, and will rule that the child is a Muslim, and he will not be placed in the custody of that father. As per lineage, the child will be regarded as your son. As per custody, you will not look after the child. He will not be given to you as custody. Why? Because the Muslim cannot be under the custody of the non-Muslim. So as per the religion, the child will be a Muslim. As per custody, will not be given to the non-Muslim father. As per lineage, the man who says, this is my child, we will acknowledge that, and we will regard the child as being the child of that man. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And with that, we come to the end of this chapter. We will continue in our next lesson, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I thank you all. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.